joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Let's start with the appeal process. Are you going to lodge an appeal this week?
Yes, we're going to do that. It looks like we have until Wednesday. And we do that just for one reason. Just the imagination of being outside the ANC is traumatic. Therefore, you can imagine the reality of being outside the ANC. And that is the reason why we appeal to the NDCA. We'll take it to the NEC for a review if the NDCA confirms the decision of the DC, and ultimately the National Congress of the ANC, because we feel that the ANC doesn't fire people. The ANC is a home of everybody, including those that have hurled serious insults against both the leadership of the ANC and the movement, are today being welcomed back into the ANC. And those of us who stayed in the movement and defended it against those who wanted to destroy it are being now expelled, whereas those who said terrible things about the organization are being welcomed. So it can never be correct. No, we know there were people who went to form an organization which did not live for more than a year, and they came back to the ANC. And when they left the ANC, they said very bad things about the ANC, including leadership. And today they have been welcomed, and the reason is that the ANC is for everybody. There's nobody who can be chased away from the movement.
Now, what are you going to do differently this time around? Because you had an appeal before, which you
look, there's nothing that we're going to do differently. We think that the sanction is not reasonable, is too heavy, is not corrective in nature, because discipline in the ANC aims to correct any wrongdoing and seeks to build particularly the young ones. And when you expel them, where are you going to build them? Because they will be outside the African National Congress. So it is in the main political more than technical legalities, because we're a political organization.
I don't think people will argue with you on that one, except that they would say, but that is true, but only if people are prepared to show remorse.
What is remorse?
Which they would argue you haven't done.
What is remorse politically? Because I've not stolen bread, and therefore I cannot go and say I'm poor, my mother is unemployed, I've got 5 children. No, a remorse should be within a political spirit. I went there, I told them that if you think that I've wronged the organization, you can remove me as a president of the Youth League, you can remove me as a PC member of the ANC, you can also suspend me from holding a political position for the next 10 years, because maybe we did these mistakes because we are immature, as suggested by President Zuma in one of his interviews. And we also raised the issue that one of the things is that after completing my diploma, I've registered for a degree, BA, specializing in politics. A sanction can be that you must finish your degree within a record time, failing which a suspension of 5 years will be effective. In that way, you are correcting a young person. In that way, you are educating many other young people. So I couldn't go there and plead poverty and all that, but I had to make political submissions.
So you do acknowledge that you did make some mistakes? Is that what you're saying?
If the ANC arrived at that conclusion and they are more determined that we have wronged them, we subject ourselves to the leadership of the ANC and its guidance, and therefore, no matter how strong we feel, the organization has pronounced itself, because we feel that we didn't do anything wrong. We spoke on behalf of the leadership of the Youth League and the membership of the Youth League. but the ANC still says you are wrong for speaking on behalf of those people. Well and good. If the organization has arrived at that conclusion, then what becomes corrective measures is very important.
No, but someone's going to say, well, a lot of analysts have in fact said this, that maybe even if you believe in what you believe in, which you are adamant is even today that it's your position, that you could have played your cards differently, and you could have the National Disciplinary Committee could have arrived at a different conclusion to the one that it has arrived at. Had you played the game strategically differently?
No, that is English. They must explain what do they mean strategically. Because I have a friend of mine called Floyd Shibam. He went in there. He said, sorry, I apologize. I did not understand, and I'm pleading for the ANC to introduce more educational programs to make me a better spokesperson. I will never have used such words if I was given that training, but I'm more than ready. I will never in my life repeat those words. I'm very sorry. And they make acknowledgement in their judgment that he has mitigated, he apologized and all that, but still gave him 3 years.
But don't you think you would have gotten maybe a better, more
Floyd,
lenient sentence had you done the same?
Floyd got 3 years before mitigation, before saying I apologize. After saying I apologize, he got 3 years.
So time to take a short ad break. When we come back, Julius and I talk about his influence and leadership style. Welcome back. You're watching The State of Our Nation, a weekly current affairs series where we measure the pulse of our nation on critical socio-economic matters. This is a live broadcast from SABC studios here in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. And yes, you can join this conversation by visiting our Facebook page, The State of Our Nation. We're in conversation with Julius Malema. Julius, a lot of people have spoken about your leadership style, some calling you a dictator.
What did I dictate? There's nothing I dictated. I got elected in 2 conferences. So if I can be referred to a point where I refused to vacate office or refused to listen to the collective, there's never been that point. So perhaps I must be given examples of what I need to do, because a person who wants to get elected, if Julius doesn't support him, it becomes a problem. Then I'm a dictator because I don't support you. It can never be. I must be persuaded to support you. I've never stayed too long in a position. I've been COSA's school branch leader, a local branch leader. I went to region, I went to province, I became national president of COSA's, the same route on the Youth League. After being president of the Youth League, I was now elected into the PC of the ANC. There's never been a point in my life where I refused to vacate office or insisted on a position that the collective agreed upon. There are many decisions that the collective takes which I don't like, but I will have to communicate them. Painful as it is, they are decisions of the collective. So dictate on what, I don't know.
How would you describe your own leadership style?
A militant and radical leadership style.
But not a dictator.
Not a dictator. Very robust and tolerant of different views, ready for persuasion, but also prepared to persuade people differently.
In other words, even if you were to stay out of the leadership positions of the ANC come next week or the other week, whenever the outcome of the appeal comes through, you are saying that the ANC Youth League will continue to pursue the programs and the policies that it is currently pursuing.
Here is a dictator who says to a committee of authority, a DC, take my position of president, take the ANC position, suspend me for occupying position for the next 10 years, but please leave me with a card, because the imagination of being outside the ANC is too scary. Why would a dictator be prepared to leave a position? I'm not saying it to you in front of these cameras. I've said it on record to the DC. So if I was this person who loves positions and who think that influence is positions, I wouldn't have made that offer to the leadership of the ANC. I've made that offer with the understanding that if you are an ordinary member of the ANC who gets to be afforded an opportunity to engage on policy matters in the ANC at a branch level, you'll still make your influence at that level. So our ideas and what we represented as this generation will live longer than ourselves as individuals. Today, if you read ANC discussion documents, almost everything we spoke about is in those discussion documents. The ideas are living on, yet the man has been killed and buried, and unveiling of political tombstones have been conducted.
Now, what do you say to someone who says the only reason you made or you put that offer on the table was because you had your back against the wall, one. But two, you're also doing that because you need to have space within which you can then mobilize people for the leadership change that you've been advocating.
I love the ANC. I don't know anything except the ANC. I came into the ANC when I was 9 years, and I've never lived any life except the life in the African National Congress. Personally, I do not have parents. I only have a grandmother. So you can imagine all the friends and everything else close to me is in the African National Congress. So when you get expelled from the ANC, you cannot have members of the ANC associating proudly with an expelled person. So it means you lose everything else, including those people that you have seen as family. So that imagination alone is not about influencing leadership and any form of space. When I participated in the ANC by removing posters of the opposition in the 1993-1994, I was very young. I never knew that one day I can sit next to the president of the ANC. So it has never been my ambition. Unlike others who were mentored by senior leaders of the ANC and told that as they grow up they can become this or that, there was never such a thing to me. I just became involved and loved what I was doing, and then that became my life. So the card of the African National Congress is my life.
But then you have made calls for leadership change.
Where?
You've made it clear that, for instance, you would prefer Kgalema Motlanthe to be.
Where? You must tell me where. I've never said that.
The president of the. What is the Youth League's position?
We have called for change of policy. We want radical political shift as it relates to economic policy, and we've made those proposals known to the country. There's never been a call by the Youth League that President Motlanthe must be president of the ANC. There's no such. Even with all this equipment you have here, you can't play a video where I'm saying Kgalema Motlanthe for president. I've never said that because the ANC said the succession debate or debate on leadership is not yet opened. Once the leadership declares that that space has been opened, I will engage in that matter openly like any South African. Even if I'm not in the ANC, I will still have a view as a supporter of the African National Congress as to who I think can be a better leader of the ANC. Because, by the way, the constitution of the ANC doesn't regulate supporters, so we cannot be chased away as supporters.
If someone was to ask you whether you would want the current leadership to stay, what would be your response?
That question doesn't arise, especially for now. Let's not be jajarach and jump into that space. The leadership will give guidance, and once that space is opened, we'll go for it without fear or favor.
What should people make of your praises, the praises you've heaped on, for example, former ANC President Mr. Thabo Mbeki?
I'm praising President Mandela today by just wearing his T-shirt. I don't know if I'm going to be charged for that, because previous leaders ought to be praised on the basis of the legacy they've left, and we should be proud of. We are the ones that advocated for the removal of President Mbeki in Polokwane and also as a state president, and we have no regrets about that. So it doesn't mean that there are no good things that President Mbeki did. There are many good things that President Mbeki did. He's one of the best cadres the ANC has ever produced. And we need to pride ourselves with such cadres of the movement as the African National Congress. They always do that. Leaders are always praised. Now, in the next remaining months, as we celebrate 100 years of the ANC, we'll be praising each leader of the ANC, including President Thabo Mbeki.
I'm curious to know what the conversation was between you and him at in Mangaung on January the 8th.
You are right to say it was between me and him, so it remains at that level.
It remains at that level. Well, before we take another short ad break, let me remind you that you can take part in tonight's topic by visiting our Facebook page, The State of Our Nation. You can join this conversation by visiting our Facebook page, The State of Our Nation. Just before I go to what some of our viewers are saying, are posting on our Facebook page, we already have close to 170 postings. I just want you to listen to what some of the leaders of other political organizations have to say about you. Let's have a look.
Unfortunately, by so doing, he has made a lot of young people angry. And one thing that I would like to...
Okay, bit of a problem there. We'll try and fix that technical problem. Let me start with Sinam Shah Walter Chabala, who says, I wish Julius could respect the process of the ANC. Yes, they must appeal the process after this outcome, but you must respect the final decision.
I've subjected myself to that process, and that alone is a sign of an individual who respects that process. No matter how I view the process to be unfair, it matters not, because I've subjected myself to that process.
You don't think that maybe, because this is what I'm getting every time you talk about this, that much as you say you've submitted to the process, much as you say you are willing to abide by whatever outcome, that grudge almost that is there, where you still think that you have done nothing wrong, or even tactically you shouldn't perhaps change the way you approach it, is there. Isn't that what is perhaps hardening the attitudes of the National Disciplinary Committee as well as the appeal process? Isn't that, don't you think that you're playing into the hands of whoever may in fact even consider to be lenient?
You rather die, insisting on your innocence, if you are innocent, rather than submitting for the sake of political tolerance. It doesn't matter if you are arrested for murder, and you know very well that you have not killed any person. Even if you are in the cells, it doesn't make any sense to you to change that, okay, because I've been found guilty, that I've killed person, even if I've not killed this person, I must admit, for the sake of, pleasing the judge, then you are dishonest to yourself. I'm not going to do that. Whatever the final decision is taken, I've not stolen from anybody. I've not committed any, criminal activity or anything of that sort. I was expressing the views of the youth of the ANC, which mandated me to do so. Those are not my personal views, and I'm not going to change and say I'm sorry for those views when I've got no mandate to say I'm sorry. So I must get a mandate. to say that.
Do you and the rest of the leadership of the ANC Youth League believe that nationalization, the land issue, are the most important issues that the youth should be concerned with?
We're not only speaking about the land and the nationalization. We've spoken about free education. We've spoken about quality jobs which are paying, and jobs for majority of young people who constitute the majority of the unemployed people. So there are many issues we've spoken about.
But do you think you've been as eloquent and as forceful in articulating those other issues as you have been with the land issue as well as nationalization?
We've been very eloquent. It's just that we have no final say as to what goes into the news bulletin, because it's not us who decide what happens in the news bulletin. So we speak and not speak for 2 minutes. For sure, you will know that we can't the whole speech speak about land and nationalization, but that's what the media decide to elevate against everything else. If you can get the memorandum we've submitted to Chamber of Mines, to Johannesburg Stock Exchange, to the presidency at the Union Building when we're marching during the Economic Freedom March, it contains all important issues: houses, proper sanitation, water, all those issues that affect, the working class. We're part of the march of COSATU recently to support them against the e-tolling and labor brokers, because we've got a mandate of the Congress to do so. So it's not just those two issues.
Overall, do you think the media has been fair or unfair in their portrayal of you?
It's not only me that they've projected negatively. Perhaps only Helen Zille got a positive, image. The rest of us who are associated with the movement, there's always an attempt to attack us, because they know that attacking the leadership of the movement will destroy the movement. So I'm not going to be a crybaby and say, no, I was treated unfairly by the media. It does that to everybody, including to President Zuma. They have no respect for everybody except the madam.
But there are people who would argue that, if anything, the media has in fact been kind to you, and that part of the profile that you have is actually a profile that you were given, wittingly or not, but by that same
I was
media.
never produced by the media. I grew up in the African National Congress. I'm not a product of editorial comments. I'm a product of the struggles of the poor. With or without the media knew nothing about me. They only started writing about me when I became the president of the Youth League. And I was not born the day I became the president of the Youth League. They found me with all what I have, and they have not made any contribution, both politically and otherwise, in my life. So I have no respect, none whatsoever, for media's contribution, either in my downfall or rising in the movement. I was groomed. I operated a firearm at 13 years. Where was the media? It was nowhere. When I came to Berry Crisani here at 12 years, there was no media. I was not doing that for the media. So they've not made any contribution. I grew up with this generation you see in the ANC of young people. I grew up with them. They know me.
Now, while we're at it, what is your view on the media tribunal that's being?
The media should be regulated, because this media will destroy this democracy. We had a meeting of the Youth League NEC now recently to discuss the outcome of the NDC. And the following day I wake up, all newspapers saying the Treasurer General of the Youth League is expelled. But he's there, he's not expelled. And then what recourse do we have? There was a media that reports that I'm going to be arrested when I come back from the wedding in Mauritius, and they've got confirmation despite the fact that my lawyers challenged them to say there is no such a thing. That thing was all over the media. Till today we launched a complaint to Press Ombudsman. Till today, now is the 4th month Since that complaint, there's never been a response. So we need a body which has got teeth, which will bite, because press ombudsman has dismally failed. So we need action, because we must have a recourse. The media cannot do as they wish. Today, I'm the most a corrupt person who has stolen billions in Limpopo, but with a negative balance in the bank account. How possible is that? There is no court of law that has ever found me guilty to have been corrupt. I've never worked for this government. I've never had power to channel tenders to any way. But the way I'm projected, I've accepted it, wrong as it is. But I'm projected to be the most corrupt individual. It's not correct. Even if I want to take action against those type of reporting, it's useless, because that action is meaningless. If you go to court, for sure there's going to be pronouncement after 4 years. When everybody else has forgotten about that case, you'll be reviving it. So why? What is the worth?
Okay, I want you to hold your thoughts right there. Time to take another short ad break. Don't go away. I want us to continue from where we left off just now. Lots of reports on you getting money from influential people in Limpopo who are getting government tenders and passing on some of the money to you to fund your lavish lifestyle.
I mean, I'm still waiting for that type of proof. There was a story that somebody gave me a bribe of 200,000 in the Ratanang Trust, run by some of the Sunday newspapers. Till today, there was never anything that proved that, but yet it got reported. There is such stories of people who are giving me money in exchange for tenders. What are those tenders for? One of them was David Mabilu, who one of the papers just apologized to him last weekend after he took them head on. The guy attended his wedding in Mauritius, who said, show me a tender that Julius gave me through illegal means. And there was nothing that came out of that. So there is no tender that I gave to anybody. None of government officials can ever say, I spoke to them to give a tender to a particular individual. I don't know them.
But is there a Ratanang Trust? Is there money that has been channeled?
There is Ratanang Trust. That Ratanang Trust has got monies. Part of it comes from the on-point engineers, where Ratanang Trust is a shareholder. It also gets a contribution from individuals who appreciate the community work that Ratanang Trust is doing. And all those things are not a secret. When we built a church in Seshego, President Zuma came to open it. All the business people who contributed to that church were called to come and stand in front of cameras and pose with President Zuma. So if there was an illegal activity, why would you expose such people to public?
So there is nothing clandestine about it.
It has never been a secret fund. It has never been a secret trust fund. I'm sitting here today. There is one senior leader of the ANC who says, I get money from ZANU-PF. We get trained by ZANU-PF. I'm in touch with President Mugabe. Actually, this style of beret is from Zimbabwe. That's what they do in Zimbabwe and all that. It's not true.
Now, where then, if someone was to ask?
So people who fail to challenge you, they look for certain things, because politically they can't defeat you. Because they know that what you stand for is the truth. So what do? We look for other things just to discredit an individual, so that when he stand up tomorrow, people cannot listen to what he says, because it is this corrupt person.
Let's hear the one of the house as well. Do you have a house, multi-million rand house that is being built?
I've got a house. I've got a house in Sante, which is
being demolished.
Is supported. Funded by. I took a bond from ABSA, and there are renovations in that house. It's not a strange thing. But every young person working and getting money will always make some improvements, especially when you have just bought a house.
Well, the reports say the house has been demolished and the new one is being rebuilt.
No, those renovations are carried by the owner of that house, and it is the owner of that house sitting with you here who can tell you that this is what is happening to my house, not some newspapers Marata Helele talking about other people's houses when they don't talk about their houses. That's a private property, and that private property can be accounted for to law enforcement agencies and to whoever who has got an authority to ask black young people, why do you buy houses? We're waiting for such a person.
So you have no fears whatsoever that, as has been reported, that if SARS, if the Hawks or any of the other law enforcement agencies of the state are on your case, you have no fear that there's anything untoward that you've done or that you're doing?
I have no fear of anything, but I'm politically conscious and know very well that state power can be manipulated to produce any outcome, especially by those who control that power. So whether I'm going to be arrested or not arrested, like being fired from the Youth League, I've not done anything wrong. I've never engaged with anybody consciously, unconsciously in criminal activities. I came into partnership with Lisiwa Gwangwa as two young people who are sharing a common vision and who thought they can work together and help each other grow. That is the only person I've got a business relationship with. Most of the business people mentioned, we grew up together. Some of them were my comrades in the leadership of the ANC. I've worked with them. They were in business before I became what I am today. They were successful even before Julius became the president of the Youth League. I've not made any contribution in their success. Actually, I've been a liability, because where I've got limitations, I'll go and ask for their intervention.
Would you say that the way you've lived your life, the way you've carried yourself, you've been exemplary to South African youth? In other words, when they look at you, they see, notwithstanding, I'm saying for a second, forget what the media has written about you or what other people have said about you, but are you convinced in your own heart that when you stand up, when you walk in the street, the youth of South Africa see a leader that they can trust and that they aspire to be like?
You must tell the viewers what happened in this house here in this studio before we started the show. These people just here in the studio appreciated the presence of the leadership of the Youth League and wanted to, take pictures with this leadership proudly and say this is what we're going to put, on Facebook and all that. So they are actually the ones to answer that question. Are you proud of this product? Are you proud to associate with it? And by the way, these are not illiterates in this studio. These are people who are making the SABC to be what it is, today. So leave the fact that since I was a president of the Youth League, I've never addressed empty chairs.
Okay. We're just going to play that insert that I spoke to you about earlier.
No problem.
What other leaders had to say about Julius Malema.
I think Julius has put the economic freedom on the map for young people. Unfortunately, by so doing, he has made a lot of young people angry. And one thing that I would like to ask him is whether he believes that name calling to people he disagrees with should be a political tool that young people should use going forward.
As Azanian people's organizations, there are things which he has articulated and we agree with. Maybe what we don't agree with is how he said them, but from ideological perspective, things like economic freedom, nationalizations are things which we will agree with him. However, I think the young man does not deserve much mercy, especially the manner in which he has been too bully to his counterparts, to us as other youth leadership. He has been too bully, too disrespectful.
How can I bully him? I don't know him. I've never met him. I've never met them. I don't know both of them. I didn't know the DA has got a youth. I'm just getting exposed to it now. But what makes me happy is that they talk about a leader of another youth organization. We cannot do that in the Youth League because to us they don't exist. So we are an existing organization with a clear vision which ASAPO Youth is articulating: economic freedom. Is the truth becoming truth on the basis of how you say it, or it depends on the facts before you? Whether you say it sleeping, whether you say it drunk, it remains the truth. Let us be concerned about the issues and not an individual.
On that note, time to take another shot at break. Don't go away. Postings: Viva Juju, Viva, you must keep on telling the truth. The question Henry Muhwezi as well as Yolanda Kwankwa are asking is, what's next, and will you do things differently if you are to be given another chance to lead the ANC Youth League?
I get my mandate from the Youth League, and it is the Youth League that gives us, a direction. If the Youth League is to say every Sunday the leadership of the youth must be found in church, that's where they will find me. And that leadership is guided by the leadership of the mother body. The only thing we need moving forward is to meet the leadership of the ANC so that it raises its issues that they are not satisfied with, and then say to us, this is how you need to deal with those issues moving forward. And we'll never have a problem with that type of guidance and leadership.
Now, Tebogo Kapele says, most of the youth in Limpopo will agree with me if I say Julius stole many people's lives. Do you regret the fact that you didn't serve the youth perhaps as best as you could have done?
We have served the youth very well, and you'll know that this was my second term as a president of the Youth League. So if I did not serve the youth of the ANC properly, that youth would have removed me because they had an opportunity just last year, now in June, in Kalage State. And what was even worse was that I was elected uncontested, which showed that the membership of the Youth League in their majority were approving of our leadership style.
Let's talk about a situation. This is of course hypothetical, because it still depends on whether your appeal is successful or not. Worst case scenario, it confirms the decision of the NDC. How do you see your life moving forward? I know that you said at the beginning it's too ghastly to contemplate.
No, I will go on with my life. I've accepted sort of that situation, having observed the attitude of the leadership, including the political stance they've taken. But in politics, anything is possible.
What are you going to do?
So I'll go on with my life. I'll continue studying, and I'm in business, like I said, and I'll also concentrate on my cattle farming in Polokwane. And I'm not chased from heaven, by the way. So it's better to be chased from the organization, painful as it is. You can imagine how it's going to be like to be chased from heaven. So it's not like this is the end of everything else. A 31-year-old chased from the ANC, appealing to the appeal body of the ANC fails, takes to review fails, takes to the Congress fails. He will wait for a future generation of the ANC to liberate him. Maybe Makaka or Ronald Lamola or Floyd Shibambo, one day they will become leaders of the ANC, and they will go and look for me in the villages and come and ask me to come back because they are now in charge and they understand why I was fired. So it's not about now, it's about what will the future say about the struggles of today. So it's not for anybody to judge, but for history to judge.
Do you feel isolated already?
I don't feel isolated.
You feel betrayed by other people who stood next to you and shared the views, the ideals that you have, but who are now keeping quiet?
None of them is keeping quiet. There is nobody who came to support us during these difficult times who is now quiet. Anybody who's quiet today has been quiet from the beginning. There's never been anybody that we know who has changed.
But who are the people who stood by you?
The leadership of the ANC, some of them came, Comrade Fikile Mbalula, Comrade Tokyo, Comrade Winnie Mandela, Comrade Rapu Mulegani, Comrade Soviet Lekhanyani, Comrade Clifford, Comrade Dali, Comrade Mchaulani. The leadership of the Youth League, the entire leadership of the Youth League was there throughout this difficult periods. And even today, they are still there. And they call almost every day. And what has become even more difficult is for all these people I've mentioned to call you every day to check if you are surviving. It has become something different now. Every call you receive, this too shall pass. Just hang in there. So you see that's the life we are living now. But people that we thought have very little understanding of politics, and when these things happen, they will keep distance. They have actually moved very closer. All of them. I don't think there is a single friend of mine who has turned against this leadership. They are actually more determined. They are supporting this leadership. Those who say what they say differently today, from the beginning they were not with us.
Now, you haven't mentioned President Jacob Zuma in the list of people that you mentioned. When was the last time you spoke to him?
I don't remember.
You haven't spoken to him in a while?
I have not spoken to President Zuma in a while, but...
how would you describe your relationship with him personally?
It's political. It's a political relationship. The reason I've not spoken to President Zuma in a long time is because I've not been to ANC meetings, NEC or NWC meetings. Of course I get invited, but for whatever reason I decided not to attend.
Why?
No, I mean, when you are not welcomed, you can see through body language that you are just imposing yourself and you are making lives of people difficult, because some will even have to think twice whether they must greet you or not. I mean, I don't want that type of a situation. It was so embarrassing when I went to COSATU March now recently. I had to see leaders coming together so quickly to talk about whether he must talk or not talk. What does he do here? What does he want here? And then that type of language, I don't want to put people in such situations. I was not going to COSATU March. The Secretary General of the Youth League insisted that I go to a COSATU March, but I knew that was going to happen because I've not seen people who are in trouble today. I've seen them in the past and how leaders reacted every time they see these people who are in trouble. So it was not for the first time with me, and I wanted to avoid that situation. The COSATU situation made me to remember one day when the workers demanded Mama Winnie Mandela to speak in the Congress of COSATU in 2003. I was COSA's president. President William Adisha of COSATU then ran and locked himself in a toilet because he had received a call from Smarts Ngonyama telling him that Winnie must not speak in that Congress. So I said, does he take the mandate from the workers or from the ANC leaders? So when I saw that, and one of the leaders confirming that leaders of the ANC were calling to ask what was I doing there, all these things unfolding, I don't want them to happen in my name, but I'm not in the cult.
Very briefly, your message to the youth of South Africa. If this was the last chance that you're going to have of saying something to the youth of South Africa, or if there's anything you'd like to apologize for to the youth of South Africa, what would that be?
No, the youth of South Africa, they must continue to soldier on with the economic struggle. Those young people don't need anyway my permission to do that. Today I'm from Free State, where the Premier of Free State, Ace Mahashule, told people not to attend the rally where I was addressing. Those people came without his permission. That shows a determination. And I want to also apologize to the leadership of the ANC for anything that they think I've done wrong. I did not do it deliberately. I was making a contribution. I thought I was strengthening the movement as required by the constitution of the ANC Youth League to support the movement. If my contribution by strengthening the ANC offended any one of you, I will want to apologize for that. But that was a contribution which I've made, and I have no regrets about that contribution.
Mr. Julius Malema, thank you very much.
Thank you
for agreeing to come on the show.
Thank you.
Well, that's all we had time for. Join us again next week, same time, when we look at another issue requiring your attention.